Since he's put on a Laker uniform, his name is always in trade talks.
Public humiliation has done nothing but molded me into the killer that y'all see today. I never lack confidence. I never fear confrontation. I want all the smoke.
The Lakers started off the season 3-0, an accomplishment that the team hasn't achieved since 2010. However, since then, the team has been exposed due to losing their MVP candidate, Anthony Davis. Their new coach, JJ Redick, is already getting frustrated with key players, and the team's third leading scorer is already on the trading block, along with nearly half the roster. The Lakers are a mess right now, and the return of Anthony Davis will only slightly mask the problem. If the Lakers want to have any real championship aspirations, they're going to have to make some tough decisions. The only question left is, who do they need to trade for and who do they need to trade away? So before we get to the content, make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to get the latest and greatest NBA news to your device. Now that we get all of that out of the way, cue the intro. So Stephon Diggs is out for the season, and the Houston Texans were without Nico Collins on Sunday Night Football when they faced off against the Detroit Lions, which meant that Tank Dell was going to see more targets. The problem? I had no idea who the Texans wide receiver 2 was going to be, which made it very difficult to project receiving yards at the very beginning of the game. Now, as Sunday Night Football started, we saw John Mechie explode for over 65 receiving yards in the beginning, so at halftime, I decided to take advantage of this. I went on PrizePicks to check his live projection and saw that he only needed 6 more receiving yards in the second half for his square to hit. And based off of the flow of the game, you didn't need to be a genius to know this was going to work. So I also saw that David Montgomery only needed 15 more rush yards in the second half for his square to hit. So I decided to test the waters with my first live pick and made an easy $60. Now, if you want to take advantage of this brand new feature, make sure you download PrizePicks and use my promo code microphone to get a free $50 when you make a play of $5 or more. And if you followed me on Instagram, you would have seen this projection on my story, but since it's a live projection, I highly recommend turning on my story notification so you get them immediately. And thank you, PrizePicks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The Los Angeles Lakers started off the season on a high note. They won their first 3 games for the very first time since the Phil Jackson era. But that all came to a screeching halt after their leading scorer, Anthony Davis, went down with a heel injury. During the same road trip, Davis injured his heel. The Lakers went 1-4 to go back to 500. But it gets way worse than this. Anthony Davis's injury doesn't appear to be a one-time thing.
This is a nagging foot injury for him, heel injury that he's been dealing with since the end of last season, over the summer, played with it in the Olympics, and they're confident there's nothing structurally wrong there, but something that he's gonna have to manage pain tolerance wise.
Now, thankfully for the Los Angeles Lakers, since the initial injury, Davis has come back and has been as dominant as he's ever been. But while he was gone, the Lakers were exposed for being a shell of the team that they are with Davis on the court. In the last 4 years, the Los Angeles Lakers are 13 games under 500 in games that Anthony Davis has missed with injury. And that's because once you lose Anthony Davis, you lose multiple dimensions of the Los Angeles Lakers team. Anthony Davis is their leading rebounder, one of, if not their best scorer, depending on what LeBron James does that night, and of course their best defender, as Anthony Davis finished 4th in Defensive Player of the Year voting last season. Of course, it doesn't help when D'Angelo Russell forgets how to play basketball. I mean, this sequence against the Memphis Grizzlies was just hysterical. First off, D'Angelo Russell takes a deep 3 that he bricks off of the rim. Then he plays about 3 feet off of his man to allow an uncontested pass for a wide open 3. Then on the next defensive possession, he just doesn't play defense and allows his man to just walk to the basket. And the straw that broke the camel's back was him chucking up a shot from 3, which got blocked. And JJ Redick's reaction to this was hysterical, grabbing his chair and slamming it to the ground over and over again. And when a reporter asked Redick how to fix this, all he could do is walk out of the press conference and say this.
How do you address that with the team? What's your philosophy for approaching that?
I just did.
Now, after all this went down, JJ Redick took D'Angelo Russell out of the starting lineup, but it is important to note that since his benching, D'Angelo Russell has been playing way better off of the bench, with his best performance of the season coming up against the Philadelphia 76ers a game later. But it is very evident that the Los Angeles Lakers have some huge problems. So what do they need to do in order to solve them? The Los Angeles Lakers have been rumored to be shopping players around such as D'Angelo Russell and even Austin Reeves. The latter being more surprising considering Austin Reeves has really taken the next step this year and is the team's third leading scorer behind LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Plus, he is debatably the best three-point shooter on the Los Angeles Lakers this season. Although I would take these rumors with a grain of salt because basically half of the roster has been in these trade rumors. Players like Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, and Gabe Vincent all have been included in some trade discussions this season. If the Lakers were to trade any of these players away, the best option that makes the most sense would probably be D'Angelo Russell, considering the fact that he is the biggest defensive liability that plays meaningful minutes for the Los Angeles Lakers. And so far this season, his offense really hasn't been good enough to outweigh the negative defense he brings to the table. However, considering this fact, it would be unlikely that any team would trade for him without draft capital or another player being attached to the deal. One of the main pieces the Lakers should be targeting is a defensive-minded center to help take the load off of Anthony Davis's shoulders, and the number one name that the Lakers have been trying to pursue is Walker Kessler, the center over in Utah who has really turned into one of the best rim protectors in the game, allowing opponents to just shoot 41% at the rim. He also brings a lot of value on the boards and is even developing offensively, as Kessler has the ability to develop into a double-double machine, which he's already shown flashes of this season. Kessler is also under team control for the next 2 seasons on a rookie scale contract. So when you take all this into consideration, he's probably the best trade target for the Los Angeles Lakers. However, his value might be a little too high for Los Angeles right now. So who would the Lakers pivot to in that instance? Because they really do need a defensive-minded center. In the offseason, the Lakers were targeting Jonas Valanciunas, and that really hasn't changed. But on top of this, if the Milwaukee Bucks continue to lose games, you could expect the Los Angeles Lakers to be willing to bring back a familiar face and recreate a trade that they literally did 7 years ago, trading a package around D'Angelo Russell for Brook Lopez once again. These two targets would be easier to acquire for the Lakers, plus the teams that these two players play for have a reason to be trading them. For Valanciunas, he just signed a 3-year, $30 million deal with the Wizards, anticipating that he'd be a key player for the team. However, as of right now, he's playing a career low in minutes and has just started in 2 games. For Brook Lopez, his contract is expiring after this season, and in all likelihood, the Bucks aren't going to do much this year after starting off the season 2-8. The Bucks would probably like to get any sort of value they can for a 36-year-old Brook Lopez that they won't be re-signing this offseason anyway. Walker Kessler, Jonas Valanciunas, and Brook Lopez are probably the best acquisitions the Lakers can make, but it wouldn't be a Lakers speculative trade video if we didn't throw anything that's a little bit crazy out there. A fun trade that the Lakers could make, which I hope they wouldn't make, is trading for Jimmy Butler. Butler's in the final year of his contract and has a player option pending, and despite the Miami Heat trying to extend him, Butler has been unwilling so far. As of right now, the Miami Heat are 4-5, and unlike past seasons, it's not entirely thanks to Butler, and he's shooting just 15% from 3, he's averaging his lowest points per game in a decade, and is playing his least amount of minutes per game since 2013. Now, this is a small sample size, he has played in less than 10 games, but if the Heat are going to lose Jimmy Butler in free agency this offseason, why not unload him for a young player or draft capital to help build a core around Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo? If the Lakers were to do this, then Jimmy Butler would slide in at the power forward position, which means Anthony Davis would play center, and it would make for a very fun situation, but it's a lot of risk for a potentially disastrous reward. Now, this doesn't fill a need for the Lakers at all whatsoever. I'd say their primary need in this particular case is a defensive-minded center, such as Walker Kessler, Jonas Valanciunas, or Brook Lopez. Now, in my opinion, trading for Jimmy Butler isn't the most realistic trade, but there are some trades that could happen as a result of the circumstances of this NBA season. One is very realistic, and one is a little bit more unrealistic, and I'm just going to bring you the unrealistic piece of data, primarily because I found it as I was researching for this video. The more unrealistic trade that the Los Angeles Lakers can make is for Zion Williamson. Now, the reason I'm bringing up Zion Williamson is currently the Lakers have the highest odds for trading for Zion Williamson if he was to be traded. According to Bovada Official, the Lakers are the #1 team, followed by the Rockets, then the Clippers, then the Knicks. Throughout all of NBA history, there's been 2 things that have been consistent: the Lakers being keeping the top team in the mix for a potential superstar and not acquiring said superstar via trade, and the fact that Zion Williamson is consistently in trade rumors because, well, there was this rumor suggesting that he never wanted to play for a small market to begin with. I'm sure you guys remember that report that came out in Zion Williamson's second season when I mentioned that Zion's family didn't want Williamson to play for the Pelicans and wanted him to play in a larger market. But for the most part, this is a trade that could potentially happen based upon how the Pelicans season goes this year. So far, Zion Williamson is out indefinitely with an injury, and if you guys want us to make a full-length video covering that, we will, which makes him very difficult to trade, and in my opinion, this is a little bit more unrealistic. At the same time, Zion's contract expires at the conclusion of the 2027 to 2028 season, meaning that we're not really going to be making these types of videos suggesting that Zion is destined to be traded for another 2 to 3 years. And it really depends on the success of the New Orleans Pelicans before we determine that. But that doesn't mean that the Pelicans can't potentially engage the Los Angeles Lakers in a trade. Another trade that's been suggested recently is a trade that would complete the circle of the Anthony Davis trade. At this point, no one's disputing the fact that the Los Angeles Lakers won the Anthony Davis trade without a doubt, which is kind of crazy if you look at it. But if you revisit the Anthony Davis trade, the Pelicans got Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, 3 first-round picks, and 1 pick swap. Now, Lonzo Ball and Josh Hart would leave the Lakers, so this trade turned into Brandon Ingram, 3 first-round picks, and a pick swap. If you want to go even deeper, this turned into Brandon Ingram, Jackson Hayes, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Didi Louzada, Herb Jones, and Dyson Daniels. Now, it doesn't sound like the most attractive package, but when you realize that Josh Hart got traded for Larry Nance, who got traded for DeJounte Murray, in addition to Dyson Daniels and the 2025 pick that the Lakers traded them, then the final trade essentially becomes Anthony Davis for Brandon Ingram, DeJounte Murray, and Devontae Graham. I wouldn't say that the Lakers completely dominated the Pelicans in this particular trade. It's still a pretty nice haul, but it could have been way better. I mean, when this trade initially happened, it looked like the Pelicans completely fleeced the Lakers, considering the fact that one of those picks were the number 4 overall pick in the 2019 NBA draft. But in this particular case, the Pelicans are in a very precarious position. You see, in the beginning of the season, Brandon Ingram did not fit with the New Orleans Pelicans. 1 year ago, Pelicans fans thought that Brandon Ingram was the future, averaging nearly 25 points per game, shooting 39% from 3, and also dishing 6 assists per game. The reason why Brandon Ingram was selected number 2 overall in the 2016 NBA draft was because he was supposed to be the next coming of Kevin Durant, but he had to develop into such player. He had the length to be one of the best defenders in the NBA, and he was a matchup nightmare. Theoretically, Ingram could have played any position on the court. The problem was he never developed into that type of player. He's not a two-way player at all. He's more of a isolation scorer on offense, which isn't necessarily bad, but whenever you're a team like the New Orleans Pelicans, who went into the season with DeJounte Murray, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, and Trey Murphy, it kind of makes it difficult to imagine Ingram being on this team for the foreseeable future. But the one thing that completely changed everything for the Pelicans was in the very beginning of the season, DeJounte Murray would break his hand, which gave Brandon Ingram a bigger role. Now that Zion Williamson is out indefinitely once again, Brandon Ingram is essentially in a situation where he could stuff the stat sheet for the Pelicans once again. And so far, he's been okay. He's averaging 34% from 3, but he's shooting nearly double the amount of threes that he was last year, and he's averaging about 23 points per game. The Los Angeles Lakers could offer Rui Hachimura and D'Angelo Russell for Brandon Ingram, but then there's the question of why would they do that? It really doesn't make sense. Brandon Ingram is on an expiring contract. Rui Hachimura's contract is significantly better. Hachimura also fits the Lakers better than Ingram, and it's not like the Lakers are struggling with perimeter scoring. The Lakers' biggest issue is front court depth, which is why Zion Williamson would be an intriguing option if they wanted to give up their unprotected future first-round picks from the post-LeBron era. But alas, that's something that's so crazy that I just can't imagine that happening. Now, the good news is Anthony Davis's heel injury seems to be fine for now. The bad news is that Anthony Davis just hurt his eye and is going to be seeing a specialist to see how bad it truly is. Hopefully this won't keep him out long term, but even when AD is healthy, the Lakers do have some issues, and plenty more when he is injured, so as a result, the Lakers must make a trade if they want to make some noise in the playoffs. Let me know in the comment section down below what's a realistic trade that you'd like to see the Lakers make. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.